Hey there everyone, Alva here. Last Friday rolled around and Small Impact Games had another excellent dev blog over on Spicy Bean Dip's Twitch channel. I mentioned in my Excavation update thoughts that I would cover this blog if it had a decent amount of content in it, and oh boy did it. So hey, quickly, sorry about my voice, a little under the weather this weekend, but wanted to cover this, and if you like Marauders content and you're new around here, maybe think about subscribing and sticking around. I try to cover anything related to the game, and that's basically all me and my friends play. It would mean a lot to us, so be sure to also stop by and check out the full dev blog over on the Marauders official YouTube for more info, and to drop by Spicy Bean Dip's Twitch channel and YouTube channel and give him some love. With all that crap out of the way, let's get into it. SIG opened up by saying that the Excavation update has by far been their most controversial update for sure, and that they were taking care to look at all of our feedback and give it a fair shake. That said, the update marked the end of an era as they moved from quarterly updates to the bi-weekly minor update and 8-week big update schedule. Of course, these updates will always be followed by hot fixes and patches for anything that didn't work out or needs fine-tuned. So they want to do this for a few reasons. It gives people things to look forward to and keeps us invested longer, and allows for SIG to add more depth to the game on a more regular basis so that the game doesn't get stale. They said that their current patches are so big that a lot of the smaller things can be lost in the noise and not noticed. I agree with that, and as I mentioned that I haven't found any new weapon attachments, the dart pistol, etc. in my thoughts video, I think that having small patches to really focus on these small new things will help a lot. It also gives the devs a single thing to hone in on, again like the attachment spawn rate, rather than having to deal with the attachment spawn rate, the mining frigate issues, health issues, etc. all at the same time. Having a smaller update cycle with these small things will really help, I think. The goal with the new depth they're talking about adding to the game isn't necessarily to always just make the game more hardcore, but just to add depth. They said they knew we were all getting really comfortable with the gameplay loop, but that it was time for a change. I honestly agree. Marauders had gotten a tad bit stale for us, to be honest, but with the Excavation update, we're on a roll again. Yeah, of course, new maps and everything is nice, but having the gameplay loop stay mostly the same since the release of Early Access, things like Zero to Hero, gunplay, health, etc., just made it kinda stale. I'm glad to see them finally starting to shake things up. They also asked for us to be understanding and patient. They can't implement the full version of the game right now, obviously, but need us to trust them when these updates land. Some things might confuse us, they said, but it'll all come together. A quick side note on that topic as well. Spicy and I were talking in his chat the other day, and we spoke a tad on the Cycle Frontier. What kind of went wrong? Now, I'm not going to go on a full essay rant here, but I did want to explain something that goes hand in hand with that last Marauders statement. The Cycle never really knew what it wanted to be. It was a battle royale at first, then rebranded as an extraction shooter. Something always felt off to me about that game, like it was missing something or just didn't really have a vision. Now, of course, I know some of you like that game, and that's totally fine. These are just my opinions. But Marauders also kind of feels like it's missing things. But the devs are up front and tell us their vision often. Maybe they're not always clear, like we'll talk about later, but they do tell us. There's something there with Marauders, like it's going to be something so much more than it is now. And I feel like the cycle just never had that over its almost 4 years, if you count Early Access. I do trust SIG's vision, of course. I mentioned in my original write-up about how original the game was. Its style, the loop, the idea. It just has something. Anyway, onwards. Breach pods got some love this blog, and they talked about the new variants of them and how they may work. One of the two they showed off has some sort of explosive rivets on it for an easier time breaching other ships. With the new health changes to breaching people, these will counteract that. The other was a Corvus class pod with mounted weapons on it. They said it would be for dogfighting with other pods. They said they weren't 100% sure how we would get a hold of these, but they were thinking they would be tied to ship type, i.e. maybe Interceptor has fighter pods, Frigate has explosive pods, as a couple examples. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to these. I can already see the carnage in space of people going around dogfighting in them. You could pod out, kill other pods, and then pick them up in your salvage airlock in your main ship. As I've always said, space could use a little more things to spice it up, and this is a great way to add to it. By the way, you can use them to damage other players' ships too, not just pods. Along with this, they confirmed that Marauders will always have this kind of push and pull with updates. So breaching just got nerfed, right? But now it needs a buff. So how do they do that? Well, they're working on a way to add breach protection to the one breaching. They're thinking that if you're standing near a breach point and someone breaches into your ship or whatever, it'll stun you and push you back as well as clear any mines near that area. I like this a lot, as it doesn't totally screw you over as the one getting breached, but just adds a little more depth to it. You can still place mines on your ship, just not at breach points. I also like it so I don't get camped breaching any of the breach-only locations, because that shit sucks. They also had something about prioritizing a safe breach point rather than being random. I don't know what this means, to be honest, but the only thing that comes to mind is possibly a system that detects if someone is near a breach point and tries to put you elsewhere, but honestly, I have no idea. So once again, with adding depth to new systems, the most controversial system so far, mind you, is a new way to call in warp gates. So far, they're liking how they're working out, but again, how can they add depth? They've come up with the idea of warp transmitters that you can bring in and out of a raid to call in gates at any time. They want it to be more of a rare item, but one that you can easily search for, maybe like they spawn on a radar tower salvage or something. These will be, of course, a one-use item. They also want to let us know that balancing the warp gate times has been much of a debate amongst themselves as it has been with us. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5. It's a constant battle and we'll probably see some changes. However, they want to refrain from going the route of nerfing everything into oblivion and try to give us more ways to combat mechanics, which in all honesty is cool. Lots of games suffer from balance issues, going back and forth on decisions rather than relying on pure numbers games. SIG is trying to think outside of the box, which I think is awesome as both the devs and our community come up with some pretty cool ideas past "it sucks, remove it." At the end of the day, they said they want extracting to feel rewarding no matter if you got loot or not. Let's see what they mean. We took leaving a raid for granted for way too long. It also looked like they would try this transmitter item before changing around the warp gate timer and see how it goes. Again, I haven't had much issues with the warp gates, but I do know it's a decisive topic. The APS underwater rifle is coming, quote, in a matter of days. Again, you're welcome for this. This, of course, will use the newly introduced dart ammo and will have a 20-round capacity. It is a slow-firing weapon, but will have the highest bleed chance of any weapon in the game. They said poke around those vaults for it. Man, I just wanted to pin people to walls. Come on, SIG. We saw some more concept art of Planet Killer Base as well as some screenshots, and it looked gnarly as hell. It is a dockable raid and has the most sturdy defense of any raid location. It is up for debate as to whether it will move around like the colony cruiser or will be static. Its scale is really impressive, even having a monorail system. No idea if you can use that, but it was mentioned. You can see where all the nukes are made, where they're stored, etc. It's a fully functioning factory and weapons launch base. It's huge, but still manages to be claustrophobic in a lot of areas. Progress is moving swiftly on the map, and we should see it before the end of the year, and is currently slated for a September or October release, which honestly isn't that far away. They mentioned a few things about balancing and their thoughts on it. They used the Bren as a good example. The Bren used to suck due to a lot of things, mainly its sights and size. It was often passed over for other things. With the Excavation update and its buffs, the Bren's got a new drum mag, nicer sight, etc., and is absolutely destroying people now. I found one in Raid and it's super nice. However, SIG admits that they might have went a little overboard with it, and it will need tweaks. However, they want to commit to making good things more rare, not nerf them into oblivion. And I do like this stance a lot. Not to throw shade, but that was always my complaint with other games like Tarkov. I always felt like 80% of the guns in that game were a huge disadvantage compared to the others. If something is good, just nerf the piss out of it until nobody uses it, is a lot of the people's mottos. Marauders is taking an approach where a lot of their underused guns are getting buffed, and instead of doing a 180 and nerfing them a month later, they're going to try and make them more rare. I like that a lot. I love most of the guns in Marauders for either aesthetics or their usefulness, so I'm happy to see that they're not going to make some just unusable. They did say that of course some things will change with the brand and future buff guns like fire rate, drum mag, capacity, etc., but it wouldn't be a, quote, hard nerf if you will. I like it. I mean, it's a Bren gun. Of course it should shred. Now, a new game mode is coming. I'm telling you, there's a lot in this dev blog. So, the new game mode is coming. It's called Raider Runs. Basically, you spawn in as a lowly raider with 5 other solo raiders. Loot on your raider is totally random. It could be a knife, a pistol, or even a blowtorch if you're lucky. You have one goal: get to a pod. It's a short session at around 10 minutes and has no space segment, i.e. you don't do anything in space. Once you get to it, you spawn in this raid location, and once you get into an escape pod, you're done. You don't even go to a warp gate. It's a limited mode, as you can't get any sort of XP, but you can keep your loot. It's an anything goes system as well, so it's up to you whether you're going to kill other raiders or not. Personally, I think I'm going to try to be a pretty chill raider, but you people always mess that up for me. It's to help with a few things. It's a good way to get free loot without worrying about losing things. Also, everybody complains about the warp gate changes, so there you go, don't have to deal with that. Since it's a quick mode, you can use it when you die first in a raid with your friends. Overall, I like it. This should be a pretty fun tension reliever. It's getting close to being ready, so expect it in several weeks. Quick side note on this, Spicy asked if there was going to be an arena mode at some point, like a strict PvP quick raid, and Sig said, that's what we're trying for in raider mode. Sometimes you won't just get spaceport or asteroid mine. It's an exciting feature because we've added a lot of content inside it. So again, kind of loose there, but maybe there's going to be an arena mode that you'll get spawned into every now and again. So the next segment was heavy stuff for Sig, and before I go any further, mad respect to Sig for bringing this up. The common wisdom is ignore cheaters and don't bring them up, but Sig wanted to address them and what they've learned rather than doing the we're working on it TM thing most devs say. Sig said they were tired of hearing that, and they were sure we are too. Now, also, I'd like to say I've not had too many interactions with cheaters in this game. I've got several hundred hours, but it's just not really been a problem for us. There's been a few suspicious things, but that's just me. Obviously, I know that I'm an outlier. I know some of you have really dealt with them. Others haven't, so it is obviously a problem if Sig's bringing it up. So Sig said cheaters come in waves almost every time, and it's generally around a week or two after an update on a regular basis now. They said that cheaters don't seem to have any reason to cheat other than messing with people. They don't even play the game to progress, as most cheaters' stats they see have basically no progression on them. It's basically just rage hacking to annoy people. They also seem to go away once they've upset the community, like they just drop off or they've been banned enough. Sig seems to think it's literally just to hurt the gaming community and nothing else. I.e., it just draws negative attention and poor reviews. Now, he did say he doesn't want to tell anybody how to review the game. By all means, review it however you want, but there doesn't seem to be any RNT or carrying going on. It's just to mess with the community. They hate the fact that their players have to deal with them and gave us all supply drops for sticking it out. They want to figure out at least what the purpose of the cheating is and why, and they'd said they'd love if a cheater would reach out and tell them why they do it. They wanted to also say that these cheaters are not going to make them go anywhere, and that they're dedicated to Marauders and its health, and wanted to thank everyone for the reports and clips they send in about this issue. When you report cheaters in this game, Sig said that it helps them ban people even in a matter of minutes sometimes. Again, it's super cool to see the devs actually just talk about this sort of problem openly, and Sig did say they were making waves in their anti-cheat, so that's good. There's new cool merch, so be sure to drop by the store and check that out. They then moved on to explain how they want to add more depth to the world and things to do in Raid. One of these things is the new mining mechanic. Grab a pickaxe and get to smashing for a chance at nickel ore and maybe something more. Honestly, super cool. I've liked these little secrets and mechanics that they've added around. The vending machines, slot machines, now mining. It's cool. It's basically ready to rock as a feature, so expect it in a patch very soon, and expect more cool things like this and more interactables in the future. Finally, they talked on the Vision of Marauders and where it fits in the FPS genre as a whole. They used a scale from Tarkov to Fortnite. They said that the United Allies update and some of the ones previously pushed the game away from where they wanted it into a more arcadey experience. Now with the Excavation update, with the movement, hipfire, health, etc. changes, they've pushed it back into line with what they want, which is feeling somewhere between CSGO and Hell Let Loose, to what they called arcade realism. They're not quite where they want the game to be, but they're really close, they said. Now, when they talk like this, I see a lot of people say, but I don't want this game to be like Tarkov, and I promise you it's not going to be unless Sig just straight out comes and says it will be. Again, they said they are not going to go to a milsim experience. I'll be honest, the game felt easy and floaty before. Shooting was easier than CSGO, there was lots of exploits on movement, the health system was way too forgiving with sprint healing and the speed which you could heal, loot was everywhere, vaults were practically useless. None of that was intended. It's just the way the game shook out over its early access period so far. Some of Marauders' competitors have an average of a 30% survival rate, which again isn't really what they want, but games like this live off a solid challenge, and when that goes away it becomes dull. A 50% survival rate for Marauders would be more in line with what they want to see. Of course, too hard is bad, but too easy is boring. It's a fine line. They hit a communication block on this and said the way it felt during the United Allies update wasn't really what they wanted, and it was just what it was. It was always supposed to be a grounded industrial sci-fi experience, and these changes have helped move it back into that realm. They don't really want to upset people with the changes, so they wanted to be upfront about where they want the game to be on this scale. It's always subject to change, of course, but it's nice to see what they're looking at, and maybe this will help people see what they're going for. They said it was nice to see all the feedback and want as much as we can throw at them. They ended the main presentation before getting into the Q&A by saying thank you for sticking it out and helping with all the feedback, and just saying they're going to keep tweaking and making the game better for us all. So let's get into the Q&A. I'll do these quick fire style as this video is already long enough. I'll skip over any I mentioned in the above topics, just FYI, I did include some of that. So, any updates on guilds? Can't say right now. It's a big update, not a smaller one. Was originally slated for a closer to 1.0 release. Another dev blog will go into this feature. Network disconnect issues. The backend relies on Steam, and they think it has something to do with disconnecting from Steam. Most of the disconnect problems actually come from you disconnecting from Steam. It's an ongoing battle, but they're looking into it. There is no plans for any sort of reconnect feature at the moment, but nothing is ever off the table. Warden key drop increases. They 100% want to make it a trader item, maybe like a market trader, expensive. It will have limited uses. Still don't want to mess with it too much as it's supposed to be rare. When is the Marine Commander boss coming? He's not far off, before the end of the year for sure. Not coming in the Planet Killer Base update. He's super fun the way he plays. He is a squad boss, i.e. he has a squad with him, like the Warden. Any future plans for space combat that you didn't mention already today? Pod changes are massive and will help. They admitted space was actually an afterthought to the game, so they will always be adding to it to make it a little better. Any plans for AI changes? The next update will have some changes and will make them more consistent. They know they're a bit tough and a little unfair right now, so they'll be working to make them fun to fight, adding things like voice lines before they attack, and giving them more rules that we can understand. They don't want to just crank up their aim and whatnot. They actually had the bots who fight with the Warden stand around and block him with the shields they have in a really cool way, but it made it almost impossible to kill the Warden. This, of course, was an internal build of the game. They've got the power to make the AI smarter, it's just implementing it in a fun and fair way. Will there be a boss for each faction? Yes, lots of mini-bosses as well, like the Raider Flamethrower boss. Will spectate mode come to the game? Not at the moment. Hopefully Raider mode will help with waiting around for your friends. Are the foldable pouch rigs coming soon? It's planned and wanted, but the technical side of it is really hard to implement. It was originally in the game, but removed due to bugs. Is streamer mode coming? It's coming for sure, hopefully soon. They asked Spicy what he wanted, maybe like hiding his name when he kills people and such. Will shotguns get buffed? Yes, they have a high bleed chance now, around 50% per pellet, but it's still not enough. They want to avoid the days of the DRM Terminator, but they do need a buff. Are specific containers coming, like weapon crates, weapon racks, etc.? Yes, they want more loot-specific containers. More expansion on crafting, more things to craft? Yes. Will crafting timers be removed? Basically, but they won't be totally gone. Just a few seconds due to engine limitation and bugs. It was an afterthought of other games have it, and we do too. What a cool dev for honestly just straight up admitting that. Are more factions coming? They left it at, we're all on the same wavelength. Are safe pockets coming, i.e. secure containers? No, they're not a fan of them and want to balance the game in other ways. Will supply drops come back into the trader as a money sink? Maybe. Sig felt that it made vault loot worthless. It will be a balanced thing if returned, and will rely on balancing the amount of money players have. Probably wouldn't be the same, but something similar. They do like the idea of gambling on opening crates, but didn't like seeing people buying 15 at a time. It was way too much. Any update on making Prestige more worth it? Yes, absolutely. They want to leave this for another dev blog because it's a big discussion. They know a few ways to make it more attractive. Will we wipe with the next major update? They said, feels like it's getting close. Couldn't be much longer. Will Zero to Hero be expanded to other factions, not just the pirates? Can't answer. Might be tied to new factions. Again, we're all on the same wavelength. Are more attachments coming? Definitely. They love putting in a huge drop of them in an update and buffing guns that need them. EM2 needs an expanded mag and muzzle brake, for example. Each gun should have a minimum of 2 or 3 attachments. They're hoping for a 200 attachment loot pool. Wouldn't that be nice for the game? Will we be able to remove attachments in Raid? It's complicated to implement, but it's something they'd like to see. People love taking attachments off weapons in Tarkov, and they see that. They're going to test it out and see if it works and feels good. If it does, they'll put it in. They've talked about it a lot internally, such as maybe a workbench on the ship. Spicy suggested using a toolkit to remove things in Raid. That f***ing bastard. They're going to play around with it and see what feels best. What about a hideout and firing range? They don't want a firing range with all weapons unlocked, but something you could use with only weapons you have in your stash. They didn't answer the hideout question. What about a keychain for keycards? They want themed storage crates for a lot of things, just like armor or guns, so something like tokens and keycards aren't out of the question. Maybe a 1x1 wallet to store tokens and keys. It could be taken into a raid, but it wouldn't be safe and could be lost. What plans do you have for the lore? They haven't done much lore in-game on purpose. They think doing it outside the game with an art drop or something would be in more line with what they want. Someone brought up a VHS in chat and they liked the idea. Lore in the game will always be minimal. Maybe a graphic novel in the merch store. Will we always keep cosmetics after a wipe? Yes, that will tie into the prestige system as well. What do you mean when you say you want to slow down the game? They don't mean it in an arbitrary way, like locking us out of extracting. They mean keeping the problem of warp gates, but giving you a way to get around it. It's not as fast as just leaving anymore, but working around new things which slows the game down. They want some things to be slower, some to be faster. They don't want the game to be stale and never changing, and each raid to be the same. They want it to be slow, but when it pops off fast, it's gotta be fast and exciting. They want it to be a fun sandbox with things to play around with, rather than a bunch of hard rules to exploit. It sounds contradictory, they said, but yeah, slow it down so it speeds up in other ways. And well, that was that, my friends. A super long dev blog with a lot of topics covered, but man, was it good. Honestly, looking forward to a lot of things here. Again, just really want to shout out SIG for addressing cheaters the way they did, and shout them out again for taking in a lot of feedback. I see a lot of things suggested by the community showing up in this dev blog, and that makes me really know SIG is listening. I love the approach of so much. Not nerfing things, but making them more rare, creating new quote-unquote problems, and making cool solutions for them. It's all great. As always, the future of Marauders is bright, and we're looking very much forward to it. Thanks to SIG for the blog, and as always, thanks to Spicy Bean Dip for hosting it. We'll catch you guys next time.